people respond to different things in different ways. If someone's facing a problem, or you think someone might be facing a problem, tell them how to fix that problem for free. And I think that's another thing that salespeople struggle to do. They struggle to listen. They just want to talk. Building trust through credibility, not coming across pushy, not coming across forcing, not coming across just trying to pitch our thing and shill our product. Salespeople are often consuming training resources. What they should be consuming is the best thing you can do to separate yourself as a seller is do the hard work and just accept it's going to suck, but just accept the suck.
Salespeople are not to be trusted. Sounds familiar, right? In today's world, this is the reaction of most people when they are approached by sales teams. But why is that? What are salespeople doing wrong? How did this perception even develop? And most importantly, how we can change this negative narrative that most people have about salespeople.
Do you like when salespeople call you?
No.
In today's video, I'm here with Will Aitken, a sales consultant and trainer with extensive experience in SaaS sales and sales content marketing. Will is best known for his candid social media content that challenges conventional sales tactics while emphasizing the importance of building a genuine relationship with clients. In this video, Will and I will share some fundamental tips on how to build trust with prospects as a salesperson, create a compelling value proposition, and effectively leverage omnichannel tools to enhance your sales strategy. Without any further ado, let's start the video. Alrighty, so first of all, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Will Aitken. I run my own company. I've been working in sales for about 8 years, and I've moved over to a role where I now help teams at scale. So entire sales teams and individuals on those teams improve their sales skills. So improve the way they're reaching out to customers cold, but also then once they've got to on the funnel, how they understand the buyer, how they find problems and pain points and tie those to their solutions, and of course, close the deal in the end.
Oh, first of all, your LinkedIn description, in your LinkedIn bio, it's literally written, "Trust me, I'm a salesperson." Can you tell me why you did that?
I did that about 3 years ago, and I never took it down because people find it funny. I think that it's obviously ironic because the idea is that you can't trust salespeople. It's a play on that. Generally people are very mistrusting of salespeople. So I had that. I also had hats made that say that on it as well. Because why not just tell the world that you're about to try and pitch them something?
And in your opinion, in today's world where everyone is becoming more and more skeptic, how can salespeople effectively build and maintain trust with their clients, and particularly through social media and digital channels, in your experience?
So to answer that question, we got to look at where things have historically been when it comes to seller and buyer relationships. Generally, back in the 90s, early 2000s, only real place buyers could find information was directly from salespeople. Like there was no online thing you go onto to get information and compare every single car or software that you were looking to buy. You have to go to the salesperson and you have to take their word for it. But a lot of those times the salesperson could and often did lie, which built a stigma and reputation around salespeople that they can't be trusted. Now fast forward, buyers are trying to do everything they can to avoid talking to a salesperson. They only want to speak to someone when they can no longer continue doing it themselves. If they can't self-serve or they have a big enough account where they just couldn't buy something online with a credit card, that's when they have to then speak to a salesperson. So they're already in this mindset where they're totally trying to avoid salespeople. They have negative trust, and then they've done a bunch of research. They feel like they know everything. So a salesperson comes on, and then what do? Well, we give them the answer to their questions, but then we never hear from them again because they are the ones who are in control. So I don't promote this idea that people need to control buyers or try and change that. I think it's a case of switching over to working with buyers. And the way that people want to work with people are people who are smart, tuned in, who can teach them something, who are generous. So a lot of the things that I talk about in sales are like reciprocating. So if you give people things, they're more like to give them back to you. So that's exactly where I go with sales, right? If someone's coming for a demo, sure, I'm happy to help you out and answer your questions, but that also means that I should be asking some questions back. And asking those questions helps me better understand, hey, are you a good fit for this? Because there's a mutual win in finding out if someone's a good fit or not. We don't waste each other's time, or heavens, you don't buy something that you're going to regret buying, and I'm going to regret selling because you're going to cancel when I'm going to like the salesperson who doesn't know how to qualify a buyer. So it's about basically breaking it down, sometimes even calling that relationship out, but also just being upfront and setting the expectations that the reason that you want to chat isn't to try and close someone. It's to try and make sure that there's a mutual win at the end of things. And sometimes just saying that can help alleviate some of that mistrust that comes from a buyer when they speak to a salesperson.
And how do you get your customers to, or like potential customers to even talk to you on a demo? If they want to really know you, get to know you, you have to pass through the cold calls. Like people are so skeptical even about cold calls. So how can you show yourself, that part of yourself that's authentic and really want to help if they reject you for the first time?
Yeah, so in the context of making someone a cold call or even sending them a cold email, you've got another challenge to come over. So one, that they're mistrusting salespeople already. Two, people are being hit up a ton these days, like a ton. I think there's been a 10 times increase in the number of vendors in the past 5 years, and there's been a 10 time increase in the number of salespeople in the past 5 years as well. What's more, those salespeople have become way more efficient because they have access to automation and AI, which allows them to do almost 10 times as much. So 10 times 10 times 10, what do we get? 1,000 times more stuff landing in a buyer's inbox, 1,000 times more calls being received on their phone. So the only thing they can do, these people are busy. Half the time we're selling to executives. They've got a full job, and very small part of that job actually requires talking to a salesperson. So they're going to just shut it out and try to ignore us. So I think we go back to that point of building trust through credibility. So when we reach out to someone with generosity and we reach out to someone with credibility, hey, I speak to people like you, just like you often, and I might have something that I might be able to help you out with or teach you. Not coming across pushy, not coming across forcing, not coming across just trying to pitch our thing and shill our product, but instead coming across and saying, hey, based on this, you seem a little bit similar to these other 8 CHROs I spoke to recently, and they were all running into this problem. Is that something you're seeing as well? And then opening up from there, we're presenting a problem versus talking about a solution. And we're also showing credibility because we speak to people just like them. And we're probably speaking to more, in that example, CHROs than even they are as a CHRO. So there is something that we can teach them or they can learn from us that creates curiosity. But by focusing on the problem, we also create more curiosity because they can go, aha, that sounds relevant. That sounds, I can relate to that. What could this be? What don't I know, right? Because frankly, if they knew what we had and they needed it, then they probably would have already reached out to us. So we've got to come in with that point of creating curiosity by talking about the problem and not coming in pitching our solutions and trying to bulldoze through people just to try and get a meeting, because that again is part of the problem.
So you say it's basically better to talk about the pain and then kind of represent yourself as a credible person who could potentially help if they want help. I
like the way you said potentially. So the key here is it needs to come from a place of curiosity. When I rock up to your house, knock on your door and say your house is busted, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to offend you. If we come at this from a place of, hey, it looks like that tree outside your house has a bit of a lean on it. Someone down the road last year, during the most recent storm, that they had a tree just like that and it fell down their house, right? It's not the same as me coming up to someone saying that tree outside your house is ugly and you should have cut it down years ago, because then we're just going to make someone feel bad about themselves. So we're coming out of curiosity. We're looking at the evidence that we can gather before we reach out to someone to come up with an idea of maybe what or why they might be facing a problem. And then we're leading with that. So that, hey, it looks like your tree is leaning, or in a case of like software and B2B, hey, it looks like you've had a lot of executive turnover, specifically your female executives in the past 12 months. May I ask you a difficult question? Have you noticed some female executives struggle to speak up or use self-depreciating humor in meetings? The reason I ask is because a lot of female execs are kind of outnumbered on the male side and struggle to take it seriously, to find themselves compensating by being really quiet or being way too overly self-depreciation. We offer coaching for this, but before I continue, is that something you've seen? Can you relate to that? So like that could be an example of I was selling, that's top of mind because I was talking to someone yesterday who runs a female executive and founder coaching business, right? If we can look at the evidence and come up with a reason for why we think they might be facing that problem, but still stay curious, that's the sweet spot in outreach, in my opinion.
I kind of feel like you need to be a bit like detached. It's up to them to decide, but you're here if they want it.
Yeah, ultimately it's like, what can you control? And that's often what can you see ahead of time and what might that suggest? And the key link there, which I think a lot of salespeople miss, is like, if I see this thing, how can I tie that to a problem or pain point that I can my product can help with, right? Because we don't want to talk about any old problem. I don't want to call you and hear about your marriage troubles, for example, or if I'm selling to technology leaders, I don't want to hear about their HR problems. So it's about thinking, okay, I've seen this, and that allows me to, this word gets used a lot these days, hypothesize that this other thing might be a problem. And that's the thing that we help with. So that's why I want to talk to you specifically. Instead of just trying to reach out to everyone who could potentially use our product, I'm focusing my time and attention and making sure that those emails and calls are relevant to those people because I've made that observation up front, where I've done a little bit of research or a little bit of smart list building to say, okay, I think this person's more likely to be facing this problem than someone else. So let's find out. And the only way to do that is talk to them.
And what are the things you see most often salespeople do that erode trust? A common mistake you see often.
One of the reasons we trust people generally is because we feel like they understand us. Like if you feel understood, you're much more likely to be trusting and agree with someone. If you don't feel like someone understands you, then what happens? You're like frustrated, get over it, let's move on. So the best thing we can do as salespeople is understand our buyers. Up front, we need to know their industry a little bit. We need to know what kind of problems and things they're doing. But then when we actually get into a conversation with them, we need to make sure we're listening and showing them that we're understanding what they're saying. And I think that's another thing that salespeople struggle to do. They struggle to listen. They just want to talk. But the reality is, hey, if I speak to someone, they say, yeah, we had some turnover last year on, let's say, our sales team, and that was because our compensation plan changed, and we've tried to rebuild it now, but the new one's not working very well, and it's confusing a lot of the sales reps. I'm going to repeat that back to them. So I'm like, hey, if I'm hearing this right, you've got this new compensation plan. It caused a few people to leave because changes to comp plans often do. However, since then, you've also found that the team that's the new team or the team that remains are still struggling to understand the commission. Have I got that right? And just by repeating back what they said to me, even with my own little tweaks on it, and they go, yeah, you heard me correctly. That immediately right there shows that I'm listening and I'm not just going to go, sweet, good to hear. Well, guess what? We have a compensation software that allows you to calculate your team's commission, allows them to see, like if I went straight into that, I'm going to lose it because it's like this person listening to speak.
I'll hang up the phone.
Exactly. So listening, but also knowing our buyer's industry well enough. And the place you can do that as well is just like go to the place where they learn. Like salespeople are often consuming training resources. What they should be consuming is training resources that their buyers consume, right? So if they sell to CHROs or if they sell to CTOs, they should be trying to learn more about what they're dealing with, less sales skills and more, what does a CTO do? What are the 10 biggest problems they often face? What does a CHRO care about? At that HR tech conference, what were the main topics being discussed? And by learning those things, we can build just a little bit more credibility than the average sales rep who a buyer is immediately going to assume knows nothing about them. And we can have this kind of like credible peer approach. We're never going to know as much as a CTO because frankly, we're not developers and tech leaders and whatnot. But if we can know enough to hold a conversation with them, we can actually sometimes get their attention more as well because they don't see us as just another sales rep who's banging through a list of 100 other CTOs who knows nothing about them or their business.
That's a good point that you mentioned, because the next thing I wanted to talk about is value. In today's sales environment, a lot of customers want to feel, as you said, also like heard, understood, and seen as well. So what specific actions can salespeople do to make sure that their prospects feel seen and valued rather than just being another number? Is it just, as you said, like doing the research beforehand and trying to empathize with them, or is there anything else they can do?
So obviously, ask questions, actually listen and actively listen to what they're saying. Make sure you clarify, understand. Ask smart questions. Don't ask the same cliche questions that everyone else is asking, like, who's your boss and how are you going to make a decision on this? It's more like smart questions that have good reasoning behind them that are clearly related to the discussion. The other side of things is also giving them what they want, right? I think a lot of people got told, hey, never give a demo to someone if you haven't done these 10 things. But frankly, if someone's gone on a website or you've reached out to someone and said, hey, would you like a demo? And they've said yes, and you don't give that to them, then immediately you're eroding massive trust there, aren't you? If you say, hey, press this button on our website and you'll be able to book a demo with us. Or, hey, would you like to book a demo? And then they get on the call and you're like, joke, that comes later. I'm going to ask you 50 questions now. Sit down and zip it. All right. Like that's not a good way to build a relationship with anyone. So you have to give and get. I also find another really good way to give and provide value long before the sale ever comes. If someone's facing a problem or you think someone might be facing a problem, tell them how to fix that problem for free. Even if they never buy from you, you've given them something. That's true generosity. You're not asking for anything in return. So
that's like the reciprocity that you were talking about before. Like we feel indebted, like we feel like, oh, they gave something, so we need to give back. We cannot just get something for free. There's a price for everything, those kind of things.
It's not even that, because like that sounds a little more manipulative than it is. If I give someone something free and they go insult themselves and they don't have that problem anymore, I'm happy for them, right? It needs to be true generosity where I'm like, I'll help you, but like I don't expect anything back. That's what generosity is. If we start asking for something in return or making someone feel bad about not offering something in return, that's also a place where we could fall into the trap. Some people sending us gift cards to try and book meetings. That's a bribe. If you want something in return, and you're giving something to someone and you expect something in return, that's no longer a gift, it's a bribe.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
very
needs to
true.
be with the expectation that, and the trust that knowing that if you do the right things and you do this and people show interest in what you're offering. If I send someone a guide, right? And I'm going to use one more example here now. So I've got a friend, his name's Jed. He helps companies, one of his previous software companies he worked at, he helps companies with their email deliverability. So his software that he was selling was designed to help score, help companies get more of their cold emails out of spam into the primary inbox. One step he might do during his entire sequence of steps, maybe like step 2 or 3, would be like, hey, a lot of companies who are running sales teams are finding that emails aren't getting opened as much these days. And they're getting lower and lower responses. Big reason for that can often be that their emails are going to spam because their domain's health is low. They're having deliverability issues. Here's a checklist that's helpful so that you can fix the obvious things just in case they aren't already. Hope it helps, right? No asking there. That's it. Just send it off. And if they show interest in that, if they say thank you, then in a way, what they've told us is they were potentially having or thinking about deliverability. And then maybe we can say, no worries. Is that something you think is being a bit of a problem? And if they say yes, then we're that perfect open door to go in and say, well, it turns out we actually help with that. But it makes sense to have a conversation. I can show you what a couple of other companies are doing to avoid that spam folder. And that's immediately a better interaction than me reaching out and saying, hey, my name's Will Aiken. We have a all-in-one solution that makes sure your emails aren't going to spam. It also has, functionality XYZ. Would you like a demo? Like the two are hugely different. And that's the former is a much better approach for buyers and sellers alike.
So the next thing I want to talk about is technology. So I just want to touch on a couple of topics. So in the era where automation is very common now in sales, how can salespeople use technology without losing that human touch and without still coming off as genuine?
I think there is a place where technology can really help us. The places I'd be careful about using technology is any place where you try and replace or pretend that a human has gone in to do work when it's actually been AI, right?
Yeah.
That's where a trend I'm seeing right now, right? Like, can you imagine what it would feel like if you knew that you saw this really good email, but you found out that it wasn't actually written by a person, it was written by some kind of bot? How would that make you feel? You feel immediately deceived. And that's exactly the opposite of making someone feel good about themselves and making them feel heard and stuff like that. That's doubling down on the stereotype that most buyers have about salespeople. Same goes for like an AI phone call. I feel like I'm talking to someone. I'm like, wow, this person's great. They really listen to me. And then I find out that person's an AI. Immediately, I'm like, you've tricked me. That's not a good thing. So I think technology can really help. When I talk about these things, like, hey, it looks like this thing's happening. That's where I like to use it. List building and making sure that's as quick as possible, because you really can. Let's say I use AI to build a list of 50 companies who have had, you mentioned that your company recently received some funding, and that had funding and have open jobs, but haven't grown their sales team in the past year, right? That would tell me, in theory, that they're looking to scale their sales team, because companies who often get funding scale their sales team. They've got open jobs, but they're struggling to fill those because their headcounts remain flat, or they're finding people, but people are leaving at a similar rate, right? So that could inform me to suggest a few problems. Why do salespeople leave a company not selling as much as they thought they would, got better pay, or just the company can't find good sellers? And if I sell a solution that helps with any of those, then that gives me a good reason to reach out. Now, finding a company that's got funding, is hiring for sales roles, and has flat headcount, I can do that in like LinkedIn Sales Navigator or whatever like that. But I've seen ways to make that way easier with technology, and that's, I think, where a lot of salespeople spend a lot of time building lists and things like that. And I think that's where a lot of this new age technology can really help out. I can immediately say to whatever tool, hey, I'm looking for companies who have a website with the word product-led growth on it, who have a new CTO. And now I've got 20 really specific companies, and I can just call for all those, and I can still reach out to them and say, hey, look, I saw you just joined on board a company working with a lot of PLG companies, and they're running into this issue. And immediately I've got that relevance without having to actually go and do research on each of the prospects individually. I'm still the one doing that work.
So it's more like the manual, kind of annoying, kind of very like loaded, kind of heavy, long tasks.
Yeah, any admin, there's admin, these days. Yeah, even updating CRMs or call notes. Like, I have all my calls are just transcribed. It pushed it straight to my CRM. Back in the day, I used to dread updating Salesforce and whatnot. Nowadays, there's AI that can listen to your call, summarize it, take away the key points, the next steps, write your recap email for you. You go in there, just change a few things just to make sure it looks correct. There's a ton of efficiency to be gained in everything that happens when we're not trying to talk to the customer. And that's where technology should be used the most.
So I have one last question, which is about omnichannel strategy. What has been your experience with omnichannel strategy, and why do you think, if you think it is important for businesses to adopt an omnichannel strategy in today's sales landscape, we can say?
I'm a big proponent of like, there is no one channel that works, and there is no, a lot of people go, oh, cold calling is dead, or cold emailing doesn't work because spam filters and all that stuff, and cold calling is the only way. Realistically, no matter what we do, even if we come with an amazing message, people respond to different things in different ways. I, for instance, as someone who has a lot of LinkedIn followers, my LinkedIn inbox is the worst place to hit me. I manage my emails very well, the inbox zero. I take every call I get, no matter what. One, because I'm open to being cold called, but LinkedIn messages, 99% of the ones I get are automated, right? So, but some people say that LinkedIn's the only way to reach them, right? So we need to hedge our bets at trying to reach the person where they are most open to being reached. And that's why omnichannel works. And we also start to build a familiarity and brand across our steps sometimes. You know, they start to see us on LinkedIn and they see an email. And then when I call them, they're like, yeah, Will from Making Sales Inc. or Will from software company XYZ. And then that's going to help me massively. But it's also just increasing my chances because it's kind of like potatoes. I don't know why I'm going with this analogy right now, but I'm going to hope it plays out, right? Potatoes. Potatoes can be cooked in 20 different ways, probably more. You can have mashed potatoes, roast potatoes, French fries, smiley faces, hash browns. Sweet potatoes. That doesn't count. So that's a different category of potato. Nora, please, can you just?
Sorry,
You've ruined the analogy now, Nora. But drop it from that. No, I'm just messing. But everyone has their own favorite tater tots. There's another one. I'll give you sweet potatoes. All right. Everyone has their own favorite way of eating potatoes, right? And some people do like French fries. Some people just don't. And will never eat a French fry because maybe they're watching their weight, or they have a hash brown for breakfast in the morning. So when I think about omnichannel, what I'm doing is that if a cold call is a French fry and a cold email is a hash brown and a LinkedIn message or video is mashed potatoes, what I'm doing is basically serving up the same thing in different ways to give someone the chance to say, oh, that looks appetizing. I'm catching someone with something that they're actually willing to eat. That's how I think about omnichannel.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay, just final words. Any advice for salespeople who are trying to do sales in today's society, 2024, soon to be 2025? How to survive, what to do, how to succeed? Just some words of advice.
Sales is challenging, and it's only getting more challenging. And there's somewhat no uncertain future right now with a lot of the things out there. The effectiveness of outbound has gone down dramatically, so much so that the cost of acquisition, some companies are thinking, maybe we shouldn't be investing in the strategy anymore, and they're laying off teams and stuff like that. The best thing you can do to separate yourself as a seller is do the hard work and just accept it's going to suck, but just accept the suck. Everyone's looking for these easy buttons. You know, it's the same thing in life as well. People want to lose weight. Oh, where's the diet pill? That way I won't have to go work out. No, working out is like that's the solution. I'm sorry. If you want to lose weight, you have to eat less and exercise more. It's just as simple as it is. If you want to do well at sales, you have to do more activity and you have to do better quality activity, using some of the things that we spoke about here today. And if you accept that and you lean into that versus trying to look for the next hack or quick, easy fix that's going to help you get to your number, then you're actually going to have a much more fulfilling and a career of much more longevity in sales. So
thank you so much for sharing that, Will. I really enjoyed that conversation. Thank you so much. I think you said a lot of things that I never heard anybody say before, so it was very, very, very useful. Can you just tell us where people can find you on social media?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn, or go to my website, willaitkin.com. You can buy merch, courses. You can even, book a call with me if you want to, if you ever want to do that for any reason. I don't recommend it, but if you want that, then there's a button there as well.